Happy Friday, everybody. It's Jim. It's Amedeus. And we're getting ready for a weekend. And Amadeus, yesterday you and I were talking about the Genesis. And at that point, Tiger Woods was in the hunt to maybe make the cut or at least make some people some money with his bet. Let's talk about what happened yesterday.
Yeah, so I mentioned Bet365 was boosted, Tiger Woods under 70 and a half in the first round if you wanted to take a chance. I did
Right.
say I was not on it. I did not like it, but you never know. And sure enough, he teased you the whole round. He was sitting right at that one under, which would have put him right at 70, and it would have stayed under by a half point. But then somewhere in the back nine, he went and bogued it up and ended up finishing one over on the day. So
Well, I mean, it's one of those things where we talked about how it's going to take, be difficult for him, right? Because he'd have to walk the 18, and as we said, because of the topography of Riviera, it could be a problem.
yeah, so definitely, that's going to be a factor. He will have, I guess, a bit of a better time today because I believe you also mentioned yesterday that it's harder in the morning, and today
Yeah.
he's got an afternoon tea time, so maybe that'll help him out a bit. I believe I saw he was going closer to 3 o'clock. I don't know if that's East Coast or West Coast time, but he's definitely one of
That's
the.
our time, so
Okay,
he would teeing off at noon.
yeah, which is when I think the last like Rory and all of them they were
Yeah.
noon times yesterday. So yeah, so maybe we'll see how he does today. There was no
Mhm.
Tiger boost that I saw, but hopefully he picks it up. Maybe the afternoon tea time helps him a bit, and maybe he can get under par today.
We talked a little bit about him maybe playing on the senior tour or the Champions Tour, which they call it. And this morning, Jim Nance, who is a fantastic guy and does golf for CBS, he'll be doing the tournament this weekend for CBS. And Dan Patrick asked him about that, and he said, I just don't see it. He says, I see him more along the lines of Jack Nicklaus and Arnie, who never played tournaments on the senior level. They just played the tournaments, even though they, more often than not, knew they weren't going to make the cut. But he said he thought that Tiger still wanted to be out there playing in the with the other guys, and regardless of what happened, he felt that was going to be the way it goes.
Yeah, and it really falls in line with what I said about him yesterday and the
Mhm.
the others about how when you're that good at the sport you're in, it just becomes
Mhm.
a thing of pride. If I'm
Sure.
not competing with the best of the best, then I don't want to compete at all.
Right. Well, and there's 80 guys who start the tournament this week, and this is an invitational, so it's not a traditional, 130 people who may play on a regular tour event. And you know, I don't. If he could replicate what he did yesterday, he might make the cut, which is about 50th, right? And you can be tied for 50th. So let's say there might be 60 guys tied at 50 or below. So he'd still make the cut at that point. So we'll have to see how it plays out. But um, I here's where I have a problem. I have a hard problem seeing him being able to go 72 holes walking up and down all of, forget Riviera, all right? He's always played well at Augusta. He knows Augusta. You mentioned yesterday that I think that was your favorite tournament, the Masters,
Yes.
because he doesn't know from year to year. I mean, he does. It's printed out, so he knows, and he's played them. Most of the US Open and the PGA courses, he knows he's played them. And we talked about they always make them difficult. And ironically, they call it, I mean, they've tiger proofed it. So they made them longer, they made them, more difficult. So his success is now costing him in the end on that. That all being said, even the Open Championship, which is a links deal, which might actually help him. uh, I still think that if he has any chance at winning, it's probably going to be at Augusta.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that was the one when he made the first comeback years
Hmm.
ago. You know, that was the one where we were wondering if he was ever going to win again, and he had that huge comeback to
Hmm.
win. And now, obviously, he's on his second comeback.
Right.
But yeah, I totally agree with you. Just with the
Mhm.
sense of the familiarity he has with that course, right? He knows what to expect from it. He knows
Mhm.
the layout, what shots he needs to hit, and that was something we've talked about why Saturday really is the moving day,
Mhm.
because you've finally gotten some time. And yeah,
Mhm.
as you mentioned with the other majors, you know, they switch the course every year, and yeah, maybe he played it 10 years ago, but
Right.
and a lot of it specifically with the U.S. Open, like they never really pick a course that's like nice looks wise. They pick one that's extremely challenging for the
Right.
players to play. So that's definitely not going to help them in the long run either. So
Right.
definitely, I agree with you. Out of the majors, you know, Augusta might be the one. I think the Open Championship is out, and he that last year. That's why that was so big,
Mhm.
such a big deal for him, because he knew he's probably not going to be able to play that one
Mhm.
as he gets older. But yeah, it's pretty much the Masters.
And they didn't they didn't tiger proof the course. I mean, that course is not going to change. The only thing that's going to change is the pin placements on on a daily basis. So there's a reason they call it Amen Corner, I guess. That also, if you remember, was the place where Jack won his final his final major.
Yeah, so very fitting. It might just be the last one that Tiger
Could
wins
be,
too, right? So
could be. Uh, if I recall correctly, and I think I do in this, uh, Nance, who has wonderful lines when it comes to punctuating something. Uh, when Jack took the lead in that tournament, he said the bear comes out of hibernation. So we'll have to see if Tiger doesn't what he's going to say to meet that one. It'll be fun. Last week when the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, his line was jackpot. Kansas City gets the title. Um, being a paying his homage uh, to Vegas. So there you go, jackpot to the title. We'll have to figure out. Maybe we can send Jim a couple of lines to use if Tiger does win the Masters.
yeah, we'll have to start brainstorming them now. I mean,
Right
this is the time I'm starting to see the Masters commercials. So
there, you
you know,
go.
it's still like a few months away,
Well,
but
and
we're
Jim's not going to
gearing
do the
up.
Final Four, so he's not doing the NCAA tournament. So he'll have plenty of time to practice, and we'll just send him over the lines and say, just for not that you need the help, Jimbo, but here's your list that you can use if you want. Um, so we were talking about the NBA, and Sir Charles um, chimed in. Now, he before we get to the NBA, I don't think there's a person on the planet that doesn't know that Chuck Barkley loves to gamble. Okay, it is something that he enjoys, and he will bet on anything. He probably would bet on what color tie that Ernie will wear, on the set if you got him to that point. And so Dan Patrick, he was on Dan's show, and Dan asked him, "How'd you do in the Super Bowl?" And he said, "I lost a Mercedes." So that gives you a clue about how hefty Charles can put a bet on it. Uh, said so. Dan said, "So you had San Francisco?" And he says, "I did." And he goes, "Look," he says, "I like the team. I because if I have I'm not no regrets." He said, I thought they were going to win." He goes, and he brought up a point which I thought was pretty interesting. He said, "Look at Kyle Shanahan's," because he says he was talking about people that are hating on Kyle, right? And the 49ers. He said, "Look at what Kyle has done in his short period as a head coach in the NFL versus Belichick and Andy Reid. He said he's made the Super Bowl twice in his career thus far. It took Andy and Bill, at least 6 years to even come close.
I mean, he's got a point. I mean, it's very well known Belichick didn't have the best record before,
Yeah.
pre Tom Brady era,
He
and
didn't have an over 500 record.
yeah, and we've even touched on the fact where over 10 years ago, I would have my buddy's parents talking about how the fact that Andy Reid's the best regular season coach you'll ever find in the NFL, chokes in the playoffs. Obviously, he found his Tom Brady and Mahomes to get him over that
Right.
hill. But yeah, he's got a point. Kyle Shanahan's still a young guy, so who knows? He might have another 20, 30 years coaching in the league.
I don't think he's gonna go anywhere. So and look at he got to the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
Now,
So
Garoppolo's one of those things where it's an anomaly. It's like getting to the Super Bowl with Rex Grossman, like Lovie Smith did with Chicago. Okay, no shade meant on either of the men, but Brock Purdy's going to be around for a while.
yeah, definitely. I mean, from what I've seen, he's overperformed Jimmy Garoppolo when he was in that offense. So I mean, well, I'm curious to see what Purdy does in the coming years.
Dan Shaughnessy, who is a fantastic writer and columnist in the Boston Globe, I went back and I did a little research, and I'll put this stuff up maybe Monday or something. I got the quotes. The first 2 Super Bowls that Brady won, he talked about what a wonderful game manager he was. That he wasn't a great quarterback, but he was a great game manager. So, you want to hate on Jimmy Garoppolo, fine. I get it. I just threw shade in this direction. I didn't mean to. But Brock Purdy, I think Brock Purdy is not a game manager. I think he's gonna be there, and they've got a talented enough team to hang around.
Yeah, definitely.
So anyway, so Charles lost a Mercedes, and but he was talking about the NBA, All-Star Weekend, and he said, it's just lost a lot of luster. He said, I don't know what to tell you, and then Dan goes, "Aren't you doing that that all that stuff this?" He goes, "Yeah, He says, "So you're not?" He goes, "Dan, I can talk the way I talk because the check cleared." From he says they don't
Check
pay me.
cleared.
The check cleared.
And honestly, if I wasn't doing it, I wouldn't even be turning the TV on this
Right,
weekend, Dan.
Yeah, I'd be watching Tiger in the golf tournament.
That's what that response was.
Right. It's like, it's I think the other thing was he said, "Is there any other reason to be in Indianapolis?" So, which I thought was fun. He went on a riff. He said, "Look, the Steph Curry thing is going to be fun to watch." He says the other stuff. He goes, "I don't know." He goes, "How many ways can you come up with to dunk a basket?" He says, "We'll see." But he did say he was talking. He moved over to talk college basketball, and he said that. And I thought this was really pathetic. Actually, he said the NCAA couldn't arrange a 2-car funeral, and he said that that how is it because when I was in college, I wanted to get to the NBA, and he said so people looked at us and said 3 years, or 2 years, whatever, because it wasn't a 1-year deal in those days. Because once the guys went out of college, I'm sorry, high school to the NBA. The NBA had a thing: either you had to go and pick a person out of high school, or 2 years 2 years of college. So there wasn't in between. So you couldn't go one and done. That was brought on later. Anyway, his point was that guys are playing 6 years because you can get a doctorate degree in that time. And he goes, most of those guys have graduated from college. He said, so what's going on here? He said, with the NIL and all that sort of thing, he said it's going to be more and more difficult to figure out, you know, who is the dominant teams in college sports, whether it's football or basketball, because of the NIL deals.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a great point to make. We've talked a lot about
Mm-hmm.
the NCAA, and it's how it's pretty much a free agency right
Yeah.
now. But yeah, I mean,
Well, I'll take this one thing further, and then I'll shut up and we'll move on. But Chip Kelly last year, about this time, he was UCLA's head football coach, went into the athletic department. I'm sorry, the athletic director and the president. And he said, "Look, guys, I can coach. I can't go out and raise money for NIL and coach. I can do one or the other, but I can't do both. I will even take a cut in pay if you want to go hire somebody who will go out and raise the money for NIL." And they didn't do it at UCLA. And then at the end of the season, he said, "Look, I told you that I've been out there trying to recruit, and I told you that I can't do this. I'm going to give you one more shot to get it done." And they didn't. And so he resigned, and now is the offensive coordinator at Ohio State.
yeah. Well,
So,
if you can't beat them, join them, right?
well, I think the thing that was, and everybody's like, why did he go to Ohio State? Well, I mean, he recruited the head coach at Ohio State, to Oregon when he was out there. And so why not go and work with somebody? If you're going to be an offensive coordinator, which is what he wanted to be, why not go and do it with one of your friends?
Yeah, exactly. Right. You might as well.
Yeah, go and have some fun. Um, Coming up, we'll talk a little bit about the Daytona 500 this weekend, and there's going to be an interesting setup. You know, a lot of noise was made about the Hendrick guys not making it to the to the front row, because Hendricks has had tremendous success at getting teams, some of their drivers on the front row at Daytona. They just haven't been able to win, and so Joey Logano and will be on the pole position in his Ford Mustang, provided by Mr. Penske and the boys. The funny thing about Daytona, which is different from pretty much any other race except Talladega, because they only have two super speedways on the uh, this on the NASCAR circuit these days. They used to have a couple others, but they reduced them down to a mile and a half, which is what most of those racetracks are. I think I'm sorry. I think Atlanta still is close. If it's not 2 miles, it's close to 2 miles. What happens in those cases is you're going to get a lot of wrecks, and a lot of times it's going to be wrecks that you had nothing to do with. You just happen to be in the middle of it. You can't get out of it. So, because if you watch the race, there's a lot of two-car drafting. So, in other words, let's say Amadeus, you're in front. I'm behind you. Technically, I'm behind you. I'm one row behind you. But because I'm on your bumper, I'm literally pushing you because of the speed of the drafting and how it it's like it's got to be a two-car chain to get to the speed that it's going to be up there. So you're on the top level. There's two cars below, and those are they're usually the two that are at the top of the chain, right? Well, if you get out of whack behind me by literally inches, because you're on my bumper, then you change the aerodynamics of the whole situation. You go sideways and you take out 5, 6, 8, 10 cars. So, it's a race where attrition is really amazing. And if you can stay out of an accident, then you got a good chance of not only finishing, but maybe even winning, because there's a lot of times that there might be 18, maybe anywhere from 7 to 12 or 13 cars who finished on the same lap, on the first, on the lead lap. There have been cars that have been wrecked early in the race that have ended up coming back and winning it. Doesn't happen often. It occurs, but uh, it's going to be, that's the difference between uh, the Daytona 500 and other races, and that's why I think it's very difficult. I would think, I'm sorry, I should say that because I don't know, that it's very difficult to handicap the race, because it literally is one of those things where you really have you don't have anything that you control. You can only control where you are at any given time on that racetrack.
Yeah.
So it's going to be fun to find out how it plays out. I wouldn't bet against Logano because he's got a good car, and this does not reward aggressive drivers. Okay, this rewards people who have the patience to watch where they are and stay out of trouble if it's at all possible. So
Yes.
we'll see how it plays out, but it's going to be interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. All the season's back, right?
Mm-hmm. We'll take a look and see how tonight the trucks race. Tomorrow it'll be the Xfinity Series, and then finally on Fox at 3:00 there's going to be the Daytona 500. So 3:00 on Fox if you can watch that. By the way, all the NBA action will be on TNT. You can stream it on Max, and some of the NBA. I think one or two of the NBA events are going to be on ESPN tonight. I think it's the Futures game where you get to see all the rookies play each other. So that's on ESPN. Everything else is on TNT tonight, tomorrow, and Sunday. And so that's where you can watch the stuff. We talked about golf earlier. That'll be on Golf Channel early today. Paramount Plus and CBS will have the Saturday and Sunday events from Riviera, and it's good because it's late afternoon golf, so it goes into 7:00, Eastern time, so you get a little prime time golf on Saturday and Sunday, so that's kind of fun too. So we'll get that, and then at noon on Sunday, that's right, Sunday. It'll be the battle for first place in the American Athletic Conference, I should say, between the homestanding and first place University of South Florida Bulls and the Florida Atlantic Owls. And you and I have some beef we have with some national people who refuse to give any love to South Florida.
Yeah, not just the national people, the sports books, everybody. I got a message from my guys at South Florida basketball. If you're out there listening, just know it doesn't matter what you do, you're still not getting respect. All right, you need to go out there and let's blow the doors off FAU. Don't even just get by at home. Blow the doors off and send a statement that you're the best team in this conference. Because I'll tell you what, I was afraid, maybe if South Florida really, destroys them in this game, I should place a future. I think, I don't know if they're going to win the NCAA tournament, but I think they could definitely do some damage in it. And so I said to myself, I would love to take the South Florida team to make the Final Four. I wonder what the odds are. Well, Jim, I checked 3 different sports books and the big ones too, right? So I won't say which ones I checked, but these are like some of the biggest in the States, and couldn't find South Florida anywhere. There are no odds on them to make the Final Four or to win the NCAA tournament. According to the sports books, this team is just a fiction novel. They don't exist. They're not a real team. All right. They're nothing. And I know they're more than that. They know they're more than that. I want to see some big things on Sunday, because I'll tell you what, I don't know at this point in the season, especially if they beat FAU, I don't know how you can keep this team out of the tournament. But what bothered me even more is, so they had odds on FAU to make the Final Four, and they had odds on Memphis. Keep in mind, Memphis lost at home and blew a 20-point lead against South Florida. But look,
Right.
that's reasonable. Those are two good teams. Obviously,
Sure.
FAU was in the Final Four last year. So that's not the part that I'm mad about.
Mhm.
The part I'm mad about is that after that, there were no odds for South Florida, yet I could bet on Tulane and Temple from that conference
Temple.
to make the Final Four of the NCAA tournament. Temple, who's 1-13 or something crazy at the bottom of the AAC.
It's nuts.
Explain it to me, Jim. Explain it to me. I would love
can't.
an explanation. I don't know
I
how I
can't.
can get odds on Temple to be a Final Four team.
Well, here's some of the national press and the basketball guys. And one of the guys who I have great respect for is Andy Katz. Andy is over at CBS. He's also the college basketball correspondent on the NCAA for the Big Ten. And he does a good job. So he says USF is one of the hidden stories of the season because they are a gem. And in Andy's case, when they make the tournament, they could do some serious damage. That's Andy Katz. Take it for what it's worth. He's CBS's guy. Now, Joe Lunardi must have found religion because he didn't have them in his 68 deal. But when asked about that, Joe got a second dose of religion, I guess. He goes, they're ahead of schedule. But then again, there's nothing wrong with being ahead of schedule in a rebuilding program. He said, I still think it's going to be tough, but I think USF has to be taken seriously as a potential NCAA tournament, participant. So Joe is backing off the little no way they're going to make it, but he's not hedging much. He's just simply saying there's nothing wrong with being ahead of schedule on a rebuilding program. And, don't be surprised if they end up there. So that's not necessary. We go from Andy Katz, who's saying they're a hidden gem, to Joe Lunardi going, well, they don't suck, basically, is what he was saying.
Still a fiction novel.
Right. I think
Harry Potter kids, apparently.
Yeah. And here's Mike Ducey. And Mike is with the Sporting News. And he's one of the best at this, too. He's been doing it a long time. He says, I think USF is going into every game with the belief they can win. And when you have a team that goes into every game believing they can win, he goes, that is the start of a very good program. I think that speaks for itself. Seth Greenberg. Now, Seth and I have beef. Okay, I know Seth. Seth was the head basketball coach at USF back in the 90s, and then he quit to take the job at Virginia Tech. He says, I think that they're doing an incredible job. He says they have a new energy and ownership. They're connecting with the campus. They're connecting with the community. He says, I see big things for USF. Well, Seth, you could have been part of that had you stayed. All right. Anyway,
the one thing I don't understand is like a lot of the haters here that are like, oh, well, yeah, they're ahead of schedule, but shouldn't be in the tournament. Performance still matters. The results don't lie. They're winning games. Like, I don't understand why this isn't a team good enough to be in the tournament. I looked at their remaining schedule, and, again, this is personal opinion. They don't lose more than 2 games the rest of the way. Maybe they lose to FAU on Sunday. Maybe they lose in Charlotte. No other game on the schedule should give them trouble. And frankly, I think FAU on Sunday is a game they can win. Charlotte, I'm actually a little more scared of, but hell, if they go into Charlotte and win that game, then, they'll really impress me even more than I already am impressed with this team.
Well, here's the thing and I don't understand this, and I've only been doing this for 40 years, so maybe I'm not, observant, but the people that like Joe Lunardi, okay, they haven't lost a game since December. And the last team they lost to was UMass. Now they got off to a 3-3 start. Okay. The thing that keeps coming back is, well, they lost to UMass, they lost to Vermont, and I forget who else they lost to. It was just not not a great team. And he goes, those losses are going to count strongly against them when they try to go into the tournament. And I'm like, those losses came between Christmas and a little after New Year's. They haven't, when they got into conference play, they lost 1 or 2 games. They haven't lost since.
It's just, the mental gymnastics. I just don't get it. I could say Kentucky lost at home to Gonzaga, and Gonzaga's terrible. They're not even the best team in their conference. Right. Kentucky shouldn't even be a ranked team right now.
Right.
Yet here they are as top 25 in the country, which is BS.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, okay, you got a first-year coach. You got 6 guys who haven't played together. And you're trying to find your way, and you play 500 ball in the first 6 games you play. So those losses, the 3 losses that you had, okay, fine. They weren't the great, the greatest of all, teams. But at the end of the day, it shouldn't be how you start. It should be how you finish.
Yeah, and I'll give you a great example, Jim. So everybody's got the negative narratives out for South Florida because no one saw this team coming this year, right. And they just refuse to be wrong about the fact that South Florida can be in the tournament and win this conference. But obviously this might be not the best example just because they're winning their conference and they're going to get in, but. Let's look at St. Mary's. Look at the reverse narrative there. Oh, right. St. Mary's is back. They're doing such a great job this year. Okay, well, look at their non-conference games. They were terrible in the non-conference, and that's a big reason why I think they could dominate every team in the WCC. Fine, okay, but when they get to the tournament, they're fizzling out because they weren't good in non-conference games. Why don't we take those losses and weight them against them, right? And I'm on the side of St. Mary's is a tournament team. They've shown me in the conference that when you dominate the conference like that, they haven't lost a game yet. And as you said, you're heating up and gaining momentum towards the end of the season. It should matter how you finish the season.
I've had a long running battle, and I'll keep this down to a minimum of 2 minutes tops because we got to get going. And that is, there are teams in the ACC, the Big 12, the Big 10, the Power 4 conferences, as we like to call them, that are barely going to have either a winning record or maybe even a 500 record in the conference, and they're going to make the tournament. And I don't get that. There are conferences that deserve 3 or 4 bids that only get 1. Sometimes they get 2. So you and I love St. Mary's, and your analogy was good. South Florida is playing the way they can play. You can only play the teams on your schedule. You can't play others. So at the end of the day, I don't see how, for instance, a 1 game over 500 Indiana team is better than a South Florida team.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so, that's why I'm sending this message to South Florida. You got to send a statement on Sunday. You are not a fiction novel. We're not just, the Harry Potter story. We don't exist. Right. We're not real. It's not a fairy tale. You're a good team. Go out there, beat FAU. You could probably win every game left on your schedule. I don't see why not. Like I said, Charlotte worries me. But hey, if you're listening to me, go prove me wrong in Charlotte. I would love to see it. So I absolutely love this South Florida team this year. You have totally. It started off with you being just optimistic, Jim, and you
Right.
really got me looking into them. But the more I looked into them, the more I just love this team, and I'm expecting great things from them. If anything, you could still get them to win. That was the only future odds I could find on them. You can get them to win the AAC at plus 250, and
Wow.
hell, you're not going to get that number when they beat FAU on Sunday. So if you like South Florida, go take them to win the AAC at plus 250 right now.
Well, the geniuses who cover them in the AAC media had because the media always puts out the folks who cover the teams in the different conferences always put out a preseason, here's how it's going to land. They had them listed as 8th. Now again, nobody knew what was going to happen with the new coach. Nobody knew what was happening with the fact that he happened to bring 3 players from a tournament team at Kennesaw State with him. They only had 2 players coming back. So this is about as new a roster as you're going to get. And it's only going to get better over the years. So, Joe, if you think they're a little ahead of schedule, that's okay. We'll take ahead of schedule. The Diamondbacks were a little ahead of schedule. They didn't do badly this year either.
Yeah, you
So,
know what they are, Jim?
yeah.
South Florida's the West Virginia football team for basketball this year.
Yeah,
That's what they
I'll
are.
take that.
Everybody pinned West Virginia to be last, one of the best teams in the Big 12 this year for football. That's what South Florida is. Pinned as to be one of the worst, and they probably are the best team in the conference. So let's go, Bulls.
There you go. Speaking of West Virginia, you got to get your buddy to take you to a Mountaineers football game this year.
Yes, definitely. We'll be looking into the backyard brawl this season. So
I know some. I know some people up there, and if you guys go, I will promise to hook you up with some people who will give you one heck of a good time, and they are Mountaineer crazy.
Oh, that sounds great. That's what I want. What the full West Virginia? We're going as Mountaineer fans for that one.
You will be treated to a tailgate you may not ever forget, and perhaps you may go to a game you may not remember because of the tailgate that you went to. But it will be fun, I guarantee that.
That'll be some good stuff.
Definitely. There you go.
Yeah,
well,
definitely gonna look into backyard brawl this year.
There you go. Absolutely. Well, the backyard brawl I think is going to be in Pitt this year, but
okay.
We'll see. Well, I could be wrong. I haven't really checked the schedule, but we'll look at that. Anyway, I know it's coming up on a little over 30 minutes here, and we got some things that have to be done. So most importantly, the thing that has to be done is you have to pay attention to what Amedeus is betting on this weekend.
Yeah, make sure you check out my premium picks at bigal.com, pickadvisor.com, and theinsidersroom.com. The links are in the description below. Coming off a 2-2 day, but looking to bounce back. I'm already 1-0 from a soccer game. That's soon to be 1-0 from a soccer game. So decent start to the day, and I got one in college basketball that you can go check out. So make sure you check that out.
There you go. All right. Well, we'll be back on Monday where we can talk about who won the 500, who won the Genesis Classic, who won the most important basketball game in the history of USF regular season, and all kinds of other stuff. So join us then. We will be happy to have you as guests, and we'll be back on Monday. Be safe, be happy, and enjoy your weekend, everybody. We'll see you then.